Welcome, ASMR Xylo here. But for this evening, I'm gonna be your dungeon master. That's right, I know why you're here. You wanna play D&D, don't you? I can tell. Don't worry. It calls to us, the adventure, the glory, the action. I completely understand. But if you wanna play D&D, you're gonna need to make a character first. So, big step ahead of you. But I'll help you out. We can make your first character together. How's that sound? I'm assuming you don't know the first thing about D&D, so how about we just go over the basics? Because we don't know if you want to be a dwarf that runs into battle, giant axe screaming at your enemies, or an elf casting spells from miles away, or just a guy with a drum. I don't know. You decide what you want to play. It's D&D. But I guess I'll tell you what the classes are capable of. Now, we have a list of classes available for you to start with. First one is the Barbarian. Barbarian runs into battle recklessly, attacking with very large weapons and a whole lot of anger backing them up. Not necessarily wearing armor and caring about their own health. They just power through it all and are able to take little amounts of damage while doing it. Great tanks, great damage dealers, but solely melee fighters. The next class is the Bard. Bard's a little more unique. Now, the Bard plays instruments or dances or entertains in some fashion, but they're also usually capable of swaying their enemies, or their allies. They have a lot of spells available to them, but it's not all fireballs and lightning bolts. It's a lot of tricky stuff that it might be a little complicated for you to learn. If you're interested in that, I suppose we could go into it. But let's move on to the Cleric now. Cleric is one I might suggest you play, just because it's very helpful for the team. Yes, you're a healer, but at the same time, the very same magic that heals can deal massive amounts of damage. An early level cleric can deal more damage than any class, not to mention you get to wear armor just as heavy as the best classes around, and a shield, so you avoid getting hit, and you can deal plenty of damage at the same time. The next class is a Druid. Druid's another one of those complicated ones. You do wield magic, but it's all based around nature. You can also turn into an animal. So if you want to morph into a bear and charge your opponent after casting a spell at it, Druid is the class for you. Next is the Fighter. Fighter is your standard warrior, as you would imagine in many games. You wear heavy armor, mastery of weapons, and fight your opponents. Where a barbarian uses rage to power their attacks, a fighter uses skill. Next class is the Monk. Monk is also a skillful fighter, but they don't use any armor or weapons. And if they do use a weapon, it's something simple, like a short blade or a staff. Next we have the Paladin, which is more or less a mix between a cleric and a fighter. You get a lot of fighting capabilities, but also many of the spells and healing capabilities of a cleric. Next up we have a Ranger. A Ranger is generally what you would think is the class that walks around with a bow, moving through shadows and shooting at their opponents. They're also really good at tracking in the wild, and they can even get an animal companion. Next up is the Rogue. The Rogue is the stealthy class of the game. You sneak, you stab, or steal or pickpocket, whatever you want to do. Next class is the Sorcerer. Sorcerer is one of the spellcasters that just deals a ton of damage with their spells. It's all about attacking your opponent, while not having many defensive capabilities for yourself. Next up is the Warlock. A Warlock is very similar to a Sorcerer, except rather than getting their magic from arcane sources, They get it from demonic sources. They can summon demons to aid them, and they can invoke darker things. Finally, we have the wizard. Now, the wizard and sorcerer are very similar. However, the wizard has even more spells available to it. Not all necessarily helping with damage, but doing a lot of unique things. They just can't necessarily use as many spells at will as a sorcerer can. Now, those are all the classes. Some are more complicated than others, and I must warn you, spell casting can also be fairly complicated. But, what would you like to play? Oh, I can't hear you. Okay, then we'll ignore you completely and decide that you want to play a rogue, don't you? Yeah, a lot of people do like the rogue. The sneaking, the stealthing, the stabbing, the stealing. A ton of things that start with S. It's a great letter. So, let's see what you can do as a rogue, shall we? Now, as a rogue, you get the ability to use simple weapons. So while you can't use large axes and super awesome long swords like a fighter, you can still use knives and short swords and blades of all kinds, even a whip or darts, even a short bow, if you decide to do that. You also get the ability to sneak attack. Now when one of your allies is nearby a target, or you get the jump on your target, you deal extra damage. This can be done over and over again as long as you're in the right positioning. Rogue is definitely the class for you. But we gotta do more than just choose your class. We gotta go for your entire setup. What race do you want to play? Now humans, let's not count them out. Humans can get more stats at the very beginning than any other race, because you can get a 1 in every stat. Suppose I should tell you the stats. Well, there's strength, there's dexterity. Dexterity is going to be the one you're going to want to focus as a rogue. Dexterity will affect your attacks because you use finesse. You use quick speeds to attack rather than brute force. So, technically, as a rogue, strength isn't all that useful to you. There's also charisma. Charisma is your ability to sway and persuade. You can threaten your enemies, you can convince them, or you can lie to them. These are all checks that can be done with a charisma check. There's also your intelligence. Intelligence is fairly important for a rogue. It helps you investigate things, and it helps you recall knowledge about certain histories, religions, and other things. Then there's also your wisdom. Wisdom is good to have because that's your perceptive skills. If someone's trying to lie to you, you can use an insight check with wisdom to tell if they're really lying or not. And finally, there's your constitution, which is your health. How many hits you can take before going unconscious and dying. It'll happen. At least the unconscious part. Hopefully you don't die. Not in your first game, at least. You'll die eventually. Just, everyone dies. Let's move past that. So, human gets a lot of those stats. You can get a certain kind of elf, which gives you extra dexterity. If you get a dwarf, you can get strength or constitution. You can get a half-orc to also give you some strength and some cool abilities to go with it. But you want to play a human, don't you? A rogue human. Stats sound good, huh? You're going to want a lot of dexterity, probably some constitution, some intelligence, wisdom. If you want to be charismatic, that's great. Maybe you don't want as much strength, but we'll see what you get. So, I'm going to be rolling 2 6-sided dice here, and we're going to roll them twice to see what your first stat's going to be. Oh, 6 and a 3. We're going to need 4 numbers. 5 and a 6. You're getting some good stats today. So, with these numbers, we're going to drop the lowest number on the die. So that'll be the 3. So you still get 2 6s and a 5. Which means your first stat's going to be a 17. Now, no need to put these stats anywhere specific just yet. We're going to write all the numbers down first. If you do want to get a character sheet and follow along, Google it. Or, just relax. I got this. Next up, next stat. There's going to be a lot of rolling to do. 6 and a 4. Stop rolling 6s. I want you to be bad. And a 4 and a 1. So it's 2 4s and a 6, which is still a 14. And I'll have you know, 10 is generally what a average person would be, but you're an adventurer. With these rolls, you can average out at 12. You're above the grade so far. Let's see the next stat. Alright, that's a 1 and a 2. A 2 and a 2. Well, lucky for you, the lowest number is a 1. So it's 2 plus 2 plus 2. You get a 6. Yeah, it's a fun stat. Next stat. Let's see, a 1 and a 4. And a 2 and a 6. So that'll put you at a 12. Between the 4, 2, and 6. Maybe I jinxed you. Whoops. 2, 3. And a 6, 4. So, that'll put you at a 13. And now, for your final stat. 3 and a 5. 5 and a 3. We'll drop the 3, give you another 13. Okay, I'm not gonna lie. I'm kinda liking the stats you got here. Now, remember the 6 attributes you have. You have your strength, dexterity, constitution, intelligence, wisdom, and charisma. And you have a 17, a 14, 2 13s, a 12, and a 6. So, let's start with the obvious choice. You probably want to put that 17 in your dexterity. Dexterity is how you make your stealth. Dexterity is how you do your attacks. Dexterity is how you steal. We're going to give you the 17 in dexterity. Alright, now we have a 14. Now you could put it in constitution, get some extra health. Wisdom, be a little more perceptive. Or intelligence, be a little smarter. Yeah, let's put in constitution. Wouldn't want to lose your first character. Alright, now we have 2 13s and a 6. Let's look at that 6. Where are we going to put that? Now we could put it in charisma. You could play an incredibly awkward character who doesn't really know how to speak to people. We could put it into intelligence, and you'd be very uneducated, potentially street smart, but you wouldn't really know anything about history or religion. Or we could put it in strength, and you won't be able to lift much at all. But it won't really hurt your attacks in any way, so let's make you a weakling. You're going to have 6 strength. I think that's a good call. I think it is. And now, honestly, between the 2 13s and the 12, they all give you the same stat benefits. So, we'll give you the 13s in wisdom and intelligence and the 12 in charisma. And you can add to these later, but they will stay the same for quite a while. So you have a good-looking rogue coming out here. Now, remember, since you're a human, you get to put a +1 in any of the 2 stats you want. So actually, we can put a +1 in your wisdom here, or your intelligence, and it'll help you out a little bit more. So let's give you a 14 in intelligence. That way you'll be able to look through things a little better, recall a little more about information. And of course, we give you a +1 in your dexterity, which bumps you to an 18. Now, being an 18, it'll give you a +4 to all of your rolls with dexterity. That's a +4 to your attacks, +4 to your stealth. We've said this before. You get a +2 to anything involving your constitution, or your wisdom, or your intelligence. That's where we put that 14. And you get a +1 to your wisdom and your charisma. Your strength, on the other hand, if you have to do anything athletically, you'll have a -2. Now, don't get too scared. You still have to roll a d20, a 20-sided die. And you could still roll an 18, right? It's not that bad. Hopefully someone else in your party will be doing all the heavy lifting for you. This should work out just fine. Trust me. There's a lot of weaklings in my party. Well, now we got some stats. We got your class. We got your race. Let's look at some of the abilities that rogues get. Well, some of the things you'll get from the start. You get the ability to wear light armor. So, leather armor, studded leather. It's not really heavy armor, but since you have a +4 dexterity, you'll be moving around a lot, which means if you have leather armor, you'll have an AC armor class of 11. With your +4 in dexterity, you get the full benefit of that. You'll have a 15. It's not that bad, considering you're wearing very light armor. Now, higher AC, higher armor class, means that things won't be able to hit you as easily, because they have to make an attack roll to get past your AC. If you roll that d20 and the number is less than a 15, then they don't hit you. It's pretty handy. And even as a cleric or a fighter, they get to wear heavy armor. Best they can get to is 16 right away, or 18 if they have a shield technically. So you're pretty close to them. You and your overpowered stats, okay. That's fine. You have a great character on the way here. Now you can use simple weapons such as swords, long swords, rapiers, anything that's bad, really. So, we'll choose what kind of weapons you go with soon. But first, we're going to choose your skills. So, you get to choose some things specifically. But first, let's look at your background. A background is something you can pick in D&D, which essentially gives you some free stuff and some free skills. But I think I already know what you want to be as a rogue. Now, it's a little simple, but how about we be a criminal? You have a criminal background. Now, you may have done a little robbing before, you may have done a little burglaring, or you may have just been a hired guard for someone. Choice is yours. Add whatever flavor to your character's backstory as you want. Point is, your character gets a free point in stealth and deception. Both things I think you're probably going to want anyway. But, if you want to choose something else, feel free. There's things that can give you athletics, which maybe you want because you're so bad at it, you little weakling. But, I think we're going to go with the criminal today. So that'll give you some good stats. It'll give you your deception and your stealth. Now we can pick 4 more out of acrobatics, athletics, insight, intimidation, investigation, perception, performance, persuasion, sleight of hand, and stealth. Let's go with sleight of hand so you can steal stuff. Let's go with performance. Nah, you're not a performer, are you? Let's go with persuasion so you can speak your way out of a situation after you get caught. How about some investigation? You got some good intelligence. That'll come in handy. And finally, how about perception? With perception, you'll be able to see things a little easier. It's not a bad start, but as rogues, it gets better. You also get expertise. So you can choose 2 of your skill proficiencies, the ones that we just decided on, and make them even better. Now, having proficiency in a skill at your level means you get an additional +2. Having expertise, which only the rogue gets, means you get a +4. And as you get higher, the benefit increases. So, what's going to be the 2 favorite checks that you're going to work on? I think stealth can be one. No one's ever going to find you. +4 dexterity, +4 with the expertise, and that's onto the d20. So it'll give you a +8 whenever you roll your stats. Whenever you roll for stealth. It's pretty great. And also, how about we give you... got some good stats, but let's focus on that, You know what? There's one more thing you get as a rogue, and that's thieves' tools. That's how you pick locks and unlock doors. That's how you check traps. Let's give you expertise in that. Now you'll get a +8 anytime you go to check a trap or unlock a door. In D&D, doors can be dangerous. People never get through them. I don't want you to be one of those people. So, we're looking pretty good so far. How about we give you some items? Stuff you can start out with. We can choose either a rapier or a short sword. A rapier does more damage. Oh, that one? Sure, we'll go with that. You can get a short bow with arrows, or another short sword. Now, the reason for using the short sword is if you went with 2 short swords, you can dual wield, slashy. But I think we're going to go with the bow, so you can sneak around and shoot from afar, trying not to get killed. Because this is your first character, and remember, we don't want you to get killed. So we'll go with a short bow with 20 arrows. And then you can get a backpack full of useful supplies, a burglar's pack, a dungeoneer's pack, or an explorer's pack. Let's be honest, everyone else in your party is going to have an explorer's pack. Probably the best one. But you're going to get a burglar's pack. That gets you all kinds of stuff, so you can climb into somebody's house, sneak in, take their things. I'm pretty sure you're going to get 2 crowbars with the stuff we gave you. That's 2 crowbars. You can dual-wield crowbars. It's probably not very efficient. Don't do that. So, looks like you are well on your way here. You have your leather armor. You'll start with 2 daggers and those thieves' tools we talked about. Well, to be fair, you could play right now with this character. You have just about everything you need. But things you might want to consider. Just little things about your backstory. What kind of flaws do you have? What kind of skills do you have that aren't already listed here? Who do you know from your past? I don't know, there's some things we could roll here to decide that if you want. But let's look at what you'll get in the next couple of levels. So, for one thing, as a rogue, you'll be able to speak to other rogues using Thieves' Cant. Using markings and, short speech coded, so only thieves will know what you're talking about. You also get that sneak attack we talked about. Every time you attack, even if you're just using a dagger, which does 1d4 damage, which is a 4-sided dice, you also get a plus 1d6 if you get your sneak attack. So that's between 2 and 10 damage. That's on par with some of the tougher weapons out there. Not to mention, since you have plus 4 dexterity, you get plus 4. So, things are good for you. Things are good. You also get at level 2 Cunning Action, which means when you're in battle, you can dash, go extra fast, disengage, get out of combat, or hide a whole lot easier using a bonus action. Normally you just get 1 action and 1 bonus action, and not everyone can even use their bonus action, but you can for some really useful stuff, especially for you. At level 3, you get an opportunity to choose another path. You can be a thief, which masters in, well, that kind of stuff. You can be an assassin, which you kill stuff. And you could be a arcane trickster. Now, if you are interested in learning about spells, I would go arcane trickster. You get a few simple spells. You can mix them into your skill set, make it so it's all things that you can work with. One example is rogues get a mage hand, a magical hand that they can cast, and use it to take things off of shelves, put them in their pockets. Trick is, this magical hand is invisible. See where I'm getting with here? Pretty nice stuff. Or, you could just get damage spells, but you have weapons, so choice is yours. Or you could just be an assassin and stab things and do a ton of damage from behind. I mean, it's your call, really. But, I mean, I'm just helping you with the character. A couple other abilities you end up getting are Uncanny Dodge and Evasion. At level 5 and level 7 you get these. And let's face it, your first character's not going to make it to those levels, don't worry. But you'll be able to essentially cut damage you take in half. Which means you get to stay alive if you make it that far. Good luck. Good luck. I suppose you could just run away from battles. That's fine, I guess. Go ahead, do it. Aside from that, that's pretty much all the main things you'll be getting. There's a lot of other little abilities here and there, but you'll run into them as you go. Now, have you thought about your character's backstory? Don't need to get too complicated with it. Just think of some characters that you've interacted with, some things you've done, some things you regret maybe, and they might come into it. Talk to your dungeon master, me, or whoever it realistically is, if you're actually using this character, which is weird. Or you could just make your own character using the knowledge you picked up here. I don't know what you're doing. Whatever you decide, that's the path before you. Anyway, I think we got a character here. Maybe next time we'll go more in depth on one of the classes. We'll look at the different bonds and the different flaws that you can take. Maybe even look at the backstories a little further. You just want to get started and play, don't you? I can tell. You still have no idea what we're talking about, do you? You'll figure it out. Or you won't. By the way, hopefully this was relaxing to you all. Or informative. Anyway, everyone have a good night. Enjoy your adventure.